We, the internet-loving people, want super-fast internet where we can download 25 songs in 1 second. To show you how super fast that is, here's 25 songs in 1 second. Pretty sweet, right? DJ, give 'em another 25. Now, hit 'em with something they can dance to. You feeling that? Oh yeah. Super fast internet. AT&T Fiber.
Limited availability. Speeds vary, not guaranteed. Speed and time examples or estimates. Visit att.com/getfiber for details.
In 1995, John Suk founded Deep Elm Records. Today, 20 years later, Deep Elm Records boasts over 220 releases. We celebrate the pioneering spirit and the awesome artists that make up Deep Elm Records each week here on the unofficial Deep Elm Podcast. The unofficial Deep Elm Podcast begins now. Welcome to episode 14 of the unofficial Deep Elm Podcast. I am your host, Wayne, here. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being part of the program. Just wanted to let you know we are on SoundCloud, iTunes, recorded live every Saturday night on Spreaker.com. Tonight we are profiling Chapter 5 of the Emo Diaries and our ongoing, I guess you could say, showcase of this epic compilation series. Chapter 5 is I Guess This Is Goodbye. So if we do some checking and some looking through the previous titles, you have A Million Miles Away, you have An Ocean of Doubt, you have all of these different and then you have I Guess This Is Goodbye. This would be the end of the relationship, I would imagine, because one thing that I did read was that the Emo Diaries were kind of about a relationship and a time in life, and the Chapter 5, I Guess This Is Goodbye, well, that Chapter 4 was An Ocean of Doubt. So, I mean, there are various different interpretations, but it's pretty self-explanatory. It looks to me. So, what we're going to be playing tonight is 4 essential tracks, 2 handpicked by Deep Elm insiders, and 2 chosen by fan submissions. One of those tracks, we're going to play the first one here, but before we do that, I would like to get to some reviews of Chapter 5. And these come right off the Deep Elm website, www.deepelm.com. The first review comes from Scanner. Quote, Deep Elm really should be praised for this series of comps. Not only do they bring a lot of new bands some much-needed attention, but all the tracks are previously unreleased. The album includes the rather jawbreaker-like Slow Ride, a great track from the White Octave, which you'll be hearing shortly. The screamed anger of Cast Aside, an expansive soundscape that Benji produce. All of which get the thumbs up from me. Another essential purchase for all you emo kids. That's from Scanner. And the swell and the wave of popularity for the Emo Diaries was just amazing. And as more compilations came, more bands who were previously known started submitting material, such as the White Octave, Slow Ride, Kerith Ravine, and Sun Factor. These were bands, and as well as ENIAC, these were bands that were underground, still independent, but absolutely well known. So, I mean, it just continued the wave of popularity through the series. So Chapter 5, one of the better chapters, in my opinion. I've been listening to it all week. Although it's kind of like saying, who's your favorite kid? You can't really say who your favorite kid is because both of your kids or all of your kids, in my case, both of my kids are my favorites. What can I say? They're all great compilations, but this one does have a special place in my heart. Tonight you'll be hearing from the White Octave, as well as a track that I'm personally partial to, the Walt Lariat, 6 a.m. in Cortona. You'll hear a fan submission from ENIAC entitled I'll Never Get Home, and you'll also hear from Ruben's Accomplice. All of these different tracks can be found on the website, www.deepelm.com. You can name your price on over 220 releases, and the Emo Diaries even has its own page. If you go to the bands section, and you go to the far left-hand corner, right under the sampler section is the Emo Diaries. Click on there and have a ball. White Octave coming up here on the the unofficial Deep Elm podcast, episode 14, the Emo Diaries Chapter 5. I guess this is goodbye.
Just waiting for a day away. Somehow I've fallen from your grace, pretending all things are okay. But just waiting for a day away. Somehow I've fallen from your grace, pretending all things are okay. Everything you should have said, now I waste my time while I'm waiting for you to break these ties. When you know it's only you, when I say it's only truth, I speak. I don't want to go away from you. I can't follow suit, displaying much room. But it's better if I just forget that I can't see. You can walk away and I can't live. Creating tales to numb the pain. A simple story to regain the stable center I gave up. So simple and so delicate, a face that screams aloud. I'm still waiting for you to break these ties. When you know it's only you, when I say it's only truth, I think. I don't want to go away from you. I can't follow suit, displaying much room. But it's better if I just forget that I can't see. You can walk away and I can't leave.
Welcome back to episode 14 of the unofficial Deep Elm podcast. I'm your host, Wayne, and that it was The White Octave, Looking Past Sky. That opens up the album, the Emo Diaries Chapter 5, I Guess This Is Goodbye. More positive praise for the album here. This is from a group called the Impact Press. This is the fifth installment in Deep Elm's Emo Diaries series that documents an extraordinary and powerful style of music that possesses the ability to stir strong emotions like no other. Consider it a success, because for the fifth time in a row, Deep Elm has released an excellent compilation of bands. But these aren't just emo bands. There's indie rock and punk and hardcore and experimental all thrown in, all emotionally charged. Another review that got my attention was one from, and I'm looking it up here, where is it? The Chugging Along review. I apologize. Stand by. Let's see. Deep Elm keeps chugging along. Where did it go? I had it queued up here, and it did not. Let's see. Where did you go? There it is. This is from Aiding and Abetting. Quote, one of the longest running compilation series just keeps on chugging along. As the Deep Elm lineup shows, the definition of emo keeps changing. Now, you have to keep in mind that when Deep Elm Records first started releasing the Emo Diaries, emo was sort of there wasn't a real definition to it or anything like that. As time went on and as this compilation became more popular and as the wave of popularity for emo music and the aforementioned word emo started to grow, there started to be a definition for emo music, what exactly it was. And that was never Deep Elm's intent, to pigeonhole emo music or even have a genre of emo music. This was just music that was emotional, that was supposed to make you feel good, get or feel something, get deep into your soul. That's all it was. And there started a genre, and that became a problem later on, as we will document in future episodes. But I'm going to continue with the review here. Where is the So many reviews on this one. This tells you how really popular the Emo Diaries series was becoming, because Chapter 1 came out, people were like, oh, Jimmy Eat World is on there, and Sam I Am, oh my gosh, a good beginning. And then Chapter 2, people were like, oh, he's got something. As Chapters 3 and 4 rolled along, it was like, wow, he's really onto something. So Chapter 5 was extremely anticipated and highly reviewed by several different publications. Here it is. One of the longest running compilation series just keeps chugging along. As the Deep Elm lineup shows, the definition of emo keeps changing. The songs on this set bear a familiar resemblance to the ones on the first, but the lines of descent aren't exactly clear, which is what makes this series so valuable from a historical standpoint. This disc is also valuable simply from the musical standpoint. The songs, as always, are great, which is enough of a reason for me. That was from Aiding and Abetting. You can read all of these reviews on the Deep Elm website as I am reading them to you. I'm picking out a choice few that catch my eye, but one song that keeps coming up in these reviews, I will name this here from Jagged, 6 a.m. in Cortona by the Walt Lariat. That is one song that keeps on coming in, about the post-rock sound of the Walt Lariat from Organ Art. Just Walt Lariat just keeps coming through here. And it seems as though people were very affected by the Walt Lariat's edition here on the Emo Diaries, because you have people were starting, as I said before, to get a framework of what they felt emo was. And then they get the Emo Diaries. They're like, oh yeah, this is going to be emo. And then here comes this post-rock, beautiful instrumental from a band called the Walt Lariat, called 6 a.m. in Cortona. You are listening to the unofficial Deep Elm podcast, available on iTunes, SoundCloud, and recorded live every Saturday night, only on Spreaker.com. Released October 24th in the year of our Lord 2000, this is Chapter 5 of the Emo Diaries, I Guess This Is Goodbye. More reviews of this seminal release. Let's see. Salt for Slugs writes, any one of the songs on the Emo Diaries Chapter 5, I Guess This Is Goodbye, would prove to be an excellent background score for any motion picture about failed relationships. You can almost see the doors being slammed in faces, or the quintessential 2 a.m, drunk and screaming in the front yard final argument. All of the bands are undeniably punchy, strong, and drenched in emotional sweat. Most are a brilliant coupling of intensity and pain, and are strongly fueled by suggestively heartfelt lyrical content. Standouts include Sun Factor with an almost perfectly crafted power pop anthem, the White Octaves' Looking Past Sky for its crushingly compact anger-driven bass riff and stabbingly strong guitars, and the Walt Lariat, which you just heard, with one of the greatest insomnia songs ever written. Another review, because they just keep coming, I quote, this is from Splendid, I had no idea the Emo Diaries were up to Chapter 5. I remember Chapter 2 so well. And who can forget Chapter 3? Chapter 5 is as good as any of the others. If I had to pick favorite tracks from the collection, I'd have to say that Walt Lariat's 5+ minute instrumental 6 a.m. in Cortona is quite nice, as is our next selection, ENIAC's I'll Never Get Home. ENIAC is this is a fan submission from Jason Barr. Jason Barr made a special request. He wanted to hear ENIAC on this particular program, and this is what we're going to do. ENIAC's submission to the Emo Diaries Chapter 5, I Guess This Is Goodbye, entitled I'll Never Get Home. You are listening to the unofficial Deep Elm podcast, available on iTunes, SoundCloud, and recorded live every Saturday night, only on Spreaker.com. ENIAC, I'll Never Get Home, here on episode 14 of the unofficial Deep Elm podcast. The Emo Diaries Chapter 5, I Guess This Is Goodbye, is what is on the menu this evening. I'm your host, Wayne. And I just a quick aside about these compilations. I've spoken to several people who have confided in me or told me that these compilations literally, and I don't mean that in a hipster way, I literally died, they literally saved their lives. They would spin these CDs and these albums over and over and over again, and it was like their therapy. And I just want to say thank you to John and the folks at Deep Elm for all their hard work and putting out an amazing compilation that I get to profile, and I feel privileged to do so. We will end this show with a Deep Elm Insider track by a group called Ruben's Accomplice. And I just want to remind you that next week we will continue on with Chapter 6 of the series. Chapter 6 is entitled, and I should have this, Chapter 6 is entitled... Oh, fail. Epic fail. Chapter 6 is entitled The Silence in My Heart. I only have like 8 songs on this particular album playing on a reel on my phone every day. Kind of interesting. This is a very international release here, Silence in My Heart. You have bands from Sweden, Germany, Italy, Japan, and England. So an extremely diverse lineup, as they all are. And you can get these releases, these priceless releases, on a name your price basis at www.deepelm.com. So stay tuned for Chapter 6 next week, but we're going to close out Chapter 5 with a Deep Elm Insider track. This was a track that was forwarded to me by Deep Elm insiders, people in the know and their favorite tracks. So this is by Ruben's Accomplice, entitled You Do It Awfully, here on the unofficial Deep Elm podcast, episode 14, the Emo Diaries, Chapter 5, I Guess This Is Goodbye. And a real quick note, tomorrow is Father's Day, and I want to say a happy Father's Day to John Suk, the man who created Deep Elm Records. So much thanks from me and all of the people who have contacted me off the air and told me how important this label is. So happy Father's Day, sir. You deserve it. For all of us here on the unofficial Deep Elm podcast, I'm your host, Wayne, saying goodbye, and as always, stay fiercely independent.
Calculus geometry. Under Irish eyes and Italian skin.
You are listening to the unofficial Deep Elm podcast, available on iTunes, SoundCloud, and recorded live every Saturday night, only on Spreaker.com.
We, the internet-loving people, want super fast internet, so we can avoid having super awkward conversations with our roommates while waiting for our favorite shows to download.
Hey, man, why is my sister's number in your cell phone?
Shh, my show's ready.
Hey, don't shh me.
Listen, you should just be happy that your sister's happy.
Hey, but
Internet that lets you download a TV show in 4 seconds. AT&T Fiber.
Limited availability. Speeds vary, not guaranteed. Based on 30-minute SD TV show with Internet 1000. Visit att.com/getfiber for details.